weekend. Long in some ways, interesting in a lot of other ways. But the most part, it all started out with a little bit of disappointment. Before I even get into that, let's go to the NBA. I told you that the Denver Nuggets were somehow going to find their way back into the series against Minnesota. After being pretty much dominated for the first two games, they have come back and tied the series up and taken control of home court again. Somehow I knew that would happen because when you have these series like this, the NBA loves to have them because it gives them a fan base that has a series that they find interesting. So when it looks like Minnesota is going to blow out the Nuggets, lo and behold, here they come. You know a championship team was going to fight back, but sometimes these things are just too predictable. Now, I may be a little rambly this morning. I'm going to try to be as quick as I can, but I wanted to make the point. I talked to you all last week about me possibly having an athlete to make it to the state meet. Well, we had the region meet last week, and lo and behold, that hurdler I told you about got fourth place in the region. I'm jumping up and down celebrating, thinking I got a state berth. But I didn't realize the rule changed. Meaning, instead of being the top four, go to the state, now they're taking pretty much the top 18 times from all four regions. Meaning, if I win my regional event, I have to sit and wait on the results of the other three regional events before I know if I'm going to go to state. Now here it is, I won my region. But if I just happen to be the slowest region or just be the 19th fastest time and I'm running against people from other places, something's not quite right about that. So how is it that somebody who can win their region not make it to the state with somebody who got fourth or maybe fifth place, depending on how the times fall, they make it to state? Well, the rationale is we want the top 18 in the state. But in track, that is not a good idea because it often comes down to head to head. If I'm racing you head to head, it's me and you. We're going to push each other down the stretch. You cannot look at a time from another event in another location and say, well, this is a determining factor for who goes to state. Why? Again, those athletes are going to push each other. Another thing that you need to consider is the weather. In Jacksonville, it could be hot and sunny. Miami, it could be thunderstorming. That makes a difference on the track. Another thing that makes a difference on the track is the timing mechanism. Yeah, they might be precise per se, but that doesn't mean they're going to match exactly what the other timer is going to have. Just so happened, my athlete missed out on a couple tenths of a second. Now, if that person was head-to-head against my athlete and they took the bid before them, then I can't do anything about that. But I just think there's a big problem when you can't race head-to-head and you get eliminated. Basically, if I'm the best in the state, yeah, I would make it to the state meet, but the second best person who right there with me, I may never get a chance to run against that person. Why? Because he might be in the other heat. So how is it that you can call yourself a state champion when you don't race against the people with the best times? Don't seem to make sense. So my thing is, the top four qualifier was in place long before I ever got to high school, and I've been out 35 years. And it just changed this recently to accommodate people who are on the fringe. Well, if you got fifth place and the top four go, and you just got to deal with it. But they're making rules now that they don't want athletes or kids in general to face reality. Either you qualify or you don't. And they're trying to do the same thing they did a few years back with football. They put all these teams in regions and they say, well, you can make the state playoffs, but you don't have to play anybody in your region. So I can play 10 teams who stink, poo-poopy-doo, and make the state playoffs against a team that played a legitimate schedule and they won 7 or 8 games. Here you are, you hadn't tested yourself at all, but you're trying to tell me you qualify for the playoffs. So when that happened, people, they went on a frenzy. People ducking everybody. So finally they come back and change it, to make it a little bit more understandable. But the same way it didn't work in football, there's the same thing that you have going on in track. So I was very crushed to find out that the person didn't make it to state, even though they qualified in the top 4. Like I say, years ago, and for the majority of the competition in Florida, the first 4 went to state. And if you make 5th place, you just didn't make it. And then when you get all the 16 qualifiers at the state meet and you run off head to head, now you that's where your champion come from, not the top 18 times. Because again, your time could be based on circumstances that I can't control, and because of that, I can't go to the state meet. And I think they need to go back to the way it was. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, segue a little bit. This is an example of Haymaker Coffee. This is a coffee company started by some kids that went to Westside High School, and they stopped by the school last week to give out free samples to teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week. This example here is peppermint bark, but if you go on the website, they have a lot of interesting flavors, and they consider their coffee as being something that they call damn good. I've tried it before. It got a smooth, rich taste to it, and I think it's worth a try. And they asked me if I could say a few words about it, and that's what I'm doing. So if you're ever downtown Jacksonville on Market Street, go down and get you a cup of that damn good coffee by Haymaker, or you can go on the website and order the brands that you want. But this is Haymaker Coffee. How we doing, SJB? Good morning. I'm just ranting about my athlete not making it to state. I think the state need to go back and change it the way it was. You know, the top 4 in each region qualify, and that's the only thing that can make sense. The way they're doing it now, you can pretty much get lucky enough to duck everybody and make it to the podium on the top seed and never race against the best. And I don't think that's a good idea. And eventually it's going to get changed back. And, you know, I'm just waiting for that to happen. But I at least now know what I need to do to get to the state. I know what we're faced with. The person with the top time is a junior, as my person is. And we're new at the event. And every time we step on the track, we make better time. So even though we just missed by a couple tenths of a second, we have a chance to get on the podium next year and start working on it now, because now you know who we got to go against. But they may change the regions again, if they're even going to have any regions. I don't see the point of having a regional meet if you're just going to take the top 18 times over the state. It don't make a whole lot of sense. Can you watch the Amazing Digital Circuits, please? Well, send me a link. I'll take a look at it, whatever it is about. All right, the last thing I want to talk about before I got to go to work, like always, the Washington Commanders' new football coach, Dan Quinn, got into a little hot water over the weekend. He showed up at the team's first workout with a Washington Commanders shirt on with a feather sticking out the back. Well, why is that significant? Well, recently there's been calls for the team to return the name back to the old name, the Redskins. That's a controversial name for some because people view that as offensive. It could be offensive depending on how you look at it, but that Redskin name actually came from a ritual, an honorable ritual that you had to go through to be called a Redskin. So it's an honorary thing, not anything that is negative. But since it's viewed as negative, the league, they don't want to have anything to do with that negativity. And the owner came out and denounced the name all the way. He's not saying he's against the name. He's basically saying that because people have some offenses against the name, that it'll never come back. So him growing up in the D.C. area, he understands the affinity for the name, but because of the backlash that they may get from that, he's not going to go through with it. And I can understand that, but the NFL, they're trying to be perfect. We know they're not perfect. They're just like the Florida High School Athletic Association. They change rules to try to appease everyone, especially the person who don't qualify, who don't win their district. They try to find ways to include them all, and you can't really it doesn't help the kids at all, because if you're used to getting appeased all the time, when they get out in the real world and can't hack it, then there's a problem. They're dealing with that kind of thing in the military. They're dealing with that stuff in the workforce. Everybody needs to see a therapist now, all because you had to learn how to win. The greatest thing in the world is to find a sport, get out there and learn how to lose and compete. And the greatest thing is when you overcome all the obstacles and you win, hey, it's time to celebrate. But it's not going to ever benefit you when you can't learn how to win, and you're going to be a pout and be a brat about everything. And this is what we're seeing in the school system these days. And I think we need to go back to tough love and learning how to lose like we always did. But the NFL is in bed with the same ideas as the rest of society, and it's weak. It's going down the tubes, and we need to toughen up. But just to recap, I'm crying over spilled milk, really, because my athlete got caught in the mix on the new rules. I felt like, if it was under the old rules, we get into the state meet and then have a rough week of practice and then go and show what we can do. There's been plenty of times the person that qualified 15th or 16th out of all the districts turn around and win state, because the heart shows up in competition. I might have been cruising because I knew I was running a good time and everybody's behind me, so I can relax a little bit. But when you relax nowadays, it could cost you a spot in the next meet. And when you add to the fact that all you're doing is running finals, you only get one chance to run it. That would have been no good for me. When I ran track, it took me the first heat to get warmed up. The finals is when you got the best, because now all that mud stuff and, the jitteriness and the shakiness, that went out the way in the prelims. The finals are when it's time to get it on. But if all you're going to do is run it one time, then I never would have made it to state either, because it took me too long to get going. But I'll be back. My hurler will be back, and we're going to make some noise. In the meantime, I got to go to work. Do I have a phone? Well, if you're just a kid, then I cannot watch your digital circuits. I'm sorry. But anyway, you guys have a great day. This is Sports for Real. Got to go to work.